Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking to Drew Miller, NHL Alum Insurance Agent at Korotkin Insurance Group. Drew, great to see you. Great to see you. I appreciate you taking time to be on the show today, and looking forward into really jumping in about you and your business and your background. And so, you know, what I really I always find interesting is just the idea of discipline and reinvention. And so I kind of want to jump in there, right? So you're this elite athlete, playing in the NHL. Now you're in the business world. Talk a little bit about that reinvention and what that's like.
Yeah, you know what? I appreciate you having me on the show, and I appreciate your coaching that you do with me. And for me, it's been a big transition in life. Going from something you do every single day, your body's on a calendar. I think you have a season where you go all season long, then you have a little bit of downtime, and then you ramp up throughout the summer and you get ready for training camp. So my first summer was a little weird. I was like, man, this is great. I love being retired because I don't have the stresses. I don't have to work out and do all this stuff. But then right around like late August, September, my body started feeling weird, like getting real antsy. And I'm like, man, my inner clock is starting to say, okay, you got to get ready for training camp. And I'm like telling myself in the mirror, I'm like, you're not playing hockey anymore for work. You're transitioning into life after hockey. So it's been a transition for me, but it's one that I've enjoyed and one I was really looking forward to, life after hockey. So I found my way into insurance, and the biggest thing for me in transition is just trying to find a starting point. And I think my starting point that I finally realized after it took me a little bit of time to really break it down and understand where I was going with my future. It was really just finding that starting point and finding what made me successful with hockey, and then just transferring over some of those characteristics or core things that really made me who I was with hockey, and keep those going and try to find my success with those in insurance.
Yeah. And so what are some of those, starting points? I mean, you played with the Ducks, the Wings, Tampa Bay, so what are some of those starting points that you learned, being, just kind of, what you learned just playing versus now, playing the game of business? Yeah,
for me,
sorry, go ahead.
I'll say it's so basic for me. And I think when I was playing, and I think a lot of athletes will tell you this, you can play some mind games with yourself. And when things aren't going great, or you're not having the success that you want to have. So when I was a player, and I learned this from my dad, is when things aren't going the way you want to go, and in hockey, that's you're not scoring goals, you're not getting points, you're not playing as much as you want to play. You have to simplify things and get back to the basics.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing for me when I was a player, was you stop worrying about everything. You say, okay, what's going to make me successful? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever it is. You figure those things out, and then you really concentrate on that, and you really work at it, and you find your way. You dig your way out of the hole, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing for me was the starting points with insurance was, well, what made me successful at hockey? I want to start there. And I think it's work ethic. I mean, that was the biggest thing for me. Was I had talent, but when I got to the NHL, I wasn't the most talented. So I really had to work hard every single day and earn my spot. So I think that's the part that the starting point I had was, I got to get into now at Korotkin Insurance Group, KIG, is I got to work hard. I got to establish that within the group of people I work with, that I'm going to be a hard worker. I'm going to learn what I need to learn to be successful. And that really was my starting point there. And I think that some of the other things that you got to be coachable. So I have mentors in my office that I really rely on. I go to them a lot. I think maybe too much at times. They probably like, holy crap, Drew, get out of my office. But I need that though at times. I just need to, I want to learn. I want to have the success that they have. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can from them.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing, is just trying to be so basic that it's not reinventing the wheel, not doing anything that no one else out there has done or could do. It's just finding a way that it works the best for me.
Yeah. I love everything that you're talking about. And the basics, earning your spot, being coachable, when if you're good enough to make it to the NHL, then you're in the elite, 1% or 0.001% of athletes. And so I love how you're talking about just, having to break down into the fundamentals and already being elite. But when you're talking about being elite and you're talking about doing the basics and the fundamentals, which I'm a firm believer in. But sometimes for many people, that gets boring, and they think that there's a shortcut, and they think that there is, it's got to happen faster. But the fundamentals stay fundamental. And so how do you kind of keep that mindset today in business and as an athlete to kind of stay consistently fundamental?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I think I have so much experience with hockey. So a lot of the things I do is I relate them to my experience with hockey, and then I transition, like kind of put myself in the shoes of an insurance agent, business person, and say, okay, I can think of it in a hockey way and then relate it to business. And I think that the biggest thing, people, they want things fast. They want success instantly. And I want that same thing. I'm starting at a later age in my insurance business, and I want to catch up as fast as I can and build my book of business and all that. But the one thing that I've understood from hockey is you have to have that foundation. And I think a foundation is so important, because no matter how successful you get, if you don't have the foundation, it's going to crumble at some point, and you're going to have to rebuild it. And you just kind of get in that horrible cycle of build it up, falls down, build it up, fall down. So if you can really build that foundation, and I think that's the biggest thing, is people, you want to have the motivation, you want to have the drive to be successful, but if you don't build that foundation and do it the correct way, the proper way, and really take your time, then you can have all the success in the world, but at some point it's going to come down.
Yeah. Talk to me about this, because I always wonder about this. You're an athlete. You're on the ice. You got the crowds. They're cheering. They're like chanting your name. You played with
not my name, but
yeah, you played with Michigan State. But it's like the rush of that, right? And then you're in an office, just kind of like without the crowd. And so what's that like? How do you kind of self-motivate, right? Really kind of get in there and kind of find the way to ignite when you don't have that many people cheering you on?
Well, I can tell you what, at KIG, I got some really great cheerleaders and teammates here, which is awesome. It's one of the reasons why I came to KIG, is not only the way that they treat their clients, but how they treat their team and the staff. You really are part of a team here. So for me, it was a good transition to come over here and be a part of the team like I'm used to with a hockey team. So that's one thing there. I think that at least like motivating yourself, I've had to do it my whole career. So with hockey. So I think everyone sees the time that you're on the ice in front of 20,000 people playing. For me at Joe Louis Arena, playing in front of the greatest fans in Detroit, and it's awesome. But that's just a small sliver of actually the work that goes into it. That's the fun part. All summer long, I'm mostly working out by myself and skating with other guys from other pro teams or whoever's in town in Detroit area for the summers. There's a lot of sweat. There's a lot of tough times. You really put the hours in and no one's watching. So you got to find a way to motivate yourself, because you really are your own asset. And if you don't do it, no one's going to be like, oh man, I'm going to really push through to do it so he can take my job, or I'm going to take his job. Like, you have to find that within yourself. So that's something that's kind of been instilled in me. And that's something that I've had some of my hockey mentor people, like my older brother, did it all before me and had a very successful career. So just talking to him, it's like, hey, you gotta do what you need to do to be successful. And only you know what that is, but there's always people knocking at the door below you trying to take your job. So you better make sure that you are putting in more of an effort than the other guy is, or the younger kid that wants to take your job. So that's kind of where I am for insurance. Is I want to make sure that I'm putting my best foot forward. I'm putting the effort in to be successful. I'm doing what I can do to be as knowledgeable for my clients and do my due diligence so that I'm able to provide them the policies that they need to protect their assets that they work so hard for. I think it's just really transitioning that mindset over, and for me, it's just second nature now. I would say, like, that mindset has just kind of become who I am and how I approach life.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of those policies that you're talking about. Policies that I think a lot of companies and people don't think about what they need. Insurance, I think, is one of those things that everybody needs it. They don't necessarily want to talk about it. I think they think about life insurance a lot of times. They don't want to talk about it, or they wait too long. And I think a lot of times people don't know all the different options of insurance that they really need, not only for themselves personally, but also for their business. And so what are some of the basics, just going back to some of the stuff you're talking about, the basic things that every person for their personal use and for their business use needs to be thinking about when it comes to insurance, the policies?
Yeah, so I think right now, like, the biggest thing on the commercial side is every business, every entity is so different, and they are their own in so many different ways. So each policy is going to be tailored specifically to their needs, their exposures. It really is built around what they are all about. So once you get into the nitty gritty of everything within that policy, I think the big thing everyone's seeing in the news right now, which is going to become even bigger, is cyber insurance on the commercial side. And it's not even just for commercial side, but there's also cyber insurance for the personal side as well. But staying on the commercial side of things, this is something that you just saw Biden and Putin talking about on the news yesterday. This is something that real big companies and industries are getting hit, and we're feeling the effects of it. And it's only going to probably get worse in the future. There's going to be more of it. So this is a coverage that businesses really want to take serious now and have that coverage in place, because if they don't get it now, it's going to only in a month or 2 or 3 or 6 months down the line, it's going to be that much more expensive once there's more cyber attacks within the industry and there's claims paid out and all that stuff. Then all of a sudden it gets harder to get a policy. So it's one of those things that's always evolving in the last couple of years, and now it's really hitting the limelight of the news and becoming a real thing. So that's somewhere I think that the commercial side I see is really important right now. But also, I think the other important thing right now for commercial is everyone's coming out of COVID. Businesses are figuring out if they're making it or they're not making it. And then I think now the ones that have made it are like, man, we got to look at, am I covered the way I properly should be? And am I paying too much premium? Those are two things that are really probably the two things in the forefront of each business owner's mind. And I think looking at how KIG approaches things is we're not price driven, we are coverage driven, and we want to make sure that we are competitive on a premium. So just kind of reviewing your policies, going over it, and making sure that the proper coverage is there is what's really important. And what really is going to have the savings is within the coverages in your policy.
Yeah. And what about, talk a little bit about life insurance, health insurance? I think a lot of times, disability insurance, long-term care. When should people be thinking about all of those?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing with those is people think about it when it's maybe not too late, but right around there, or they're at an age where it gets more expensive. So I think that the young professionals, if you start talking to, in our case, we have life, health, disability departments. We have people that specialize in this at KIG that I work with or my colleagues, that we can get you into the right package and coverages and the premiums and the payments and all that stuff from a younger age. We can work the different options out there to accommodate where you're at in your life. And I think that the earlier you can lock it in, the less it is going to be for you overall in your life. So you want to make sure that you're protected. I mean, disability, I mean, you work hard in your craft to be the best you can be, but if you're hurt or disabled, and you're not able to perform your job, you're going to be losing money there. So there's so many different ways that you can protect yourself. And I think that just sitting down with an insurance agent, going over what you have in your life, what your risks are, what your needs are for your family, or if you're an individual, there's just so many things that we can sit down and go over that I think just tailoring it specifically to you is very important.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's so important. I don't think you can be talking to an insurance agent early enough. I think it's so important. I know, I've been talking to, I use Korotkin since I was 22 years old, and I'm 49. And so critical. It's so important. All right, before we wrap into a speed round, I gotta know this, because you come from this kind of lineage of this family where 10 of you played hockey for Michigan State. There's a whole handful of you, your brother Ryan, your cousins, Kip, Kevin, and Kelly, all in the, I mean, that's a lot of elite athletes in one family. So, just what was it like? I mean, what was the coaching like growing up in your family to have so many elite athletes? I mean, it's really unbelievable.
Yeah, I feel very blessed to be have the opportunity to grow up in the family that I did. Growing up with cousins, they're second cousins, but they were more like uncles in Kelly, Kevin, and Kip because of the age difference. But them playing in the NHL when I was a young kid, so I watched what made them successful. I was a rink rat. I was hanging out, filling up water bottles, sometimes skating at the end with them when I was a little kid. And my brother did the same thing. So we were surrounded by successful hockey players at a young age, not just our cousins, but Michigan State hockey players we watched, guys that came back in the summers to train. My uncle, Kelly, Kevin, and Kip's father owned an ice rink in Lansing, so we had access to an ice rink. So I think just being around it and seeing how hard they actually work from a young age, that just kind of set the expectation of how I needed to move forward, or my plan through high school and college to get to the pros was kind of laid out, and I saw what it took to take, like how I would get there and what I needed to do and have the mindset. And I think the biggest thing I learned from a young age watching them was it helped me develop my love for the game. And I think that was the biggest thing, is as much as you want to work at it, you gotta put everything into it to be successful. And you gotta have a love and a passion for it to really take it as far, because pro hockey's not always nice, and it's not always fair, and it's not always what people see on TV. I think that's just how life is. I mean, it has its good things and it has its very challenging things, but you got to take both sides and really just concentrate on the side of you get to play a sport for a living, and it's something that, as I talked about, you love the sport. So I think just growing up in this family, I developed that love for the game very early, and I figured out what it took, or watched these guys what it took. But to be the 10th person in my family to play hockey at Michigan State, I feel so blessed to be a part of that lineage. My grandpa came down in the early 50s from Regina, Saskatchewan, and brought his brother down, who was Kelly and Kevin Kip's father. And then we had a couple other cousins come down, and then my brother and me being the last of the 10 for now. It's just great to be a part of Michigan State hockey, be a part of the Miller family. I mean, Christmases were fun. Hockey talk, but I was always looking forward to my cousin Kevin would bring signed hockey sticks from some of the guys that he was playing with, some of the big name guys. So I got a pretty good hockey stick collection from him. And yeah, so it's always
cool.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, what a fun lineage and what a fun family. I was going to say your holiday dinners must have been a blast. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. All right. Quick speed round. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Man, I got a lot, but I feel like my dad, he always told me that you get what you put into it. And he also, when I was younger, he would always look at me from the crowd when I was a young kid, and he would go like this, and that meant move my feet. And yeah. I know that when I was still playing with the Wings and playing pro, I'd always think back to that, move your feet, because you don't get killed on the ice.
Right. No, I love that. Best coaching advice you ever got?
I mean, I guess that could go the same. I think when I got to Anaheim, one little thing that it wasn't maybe a coach, but I guess one thing my one coach told me, he used to yell at me a lot, and he said, Millsy, if I'm not yelling at you, then I don't care about you.
Yeah.
So I learned right then that it didn't matter if it was positive or negative, as long as they're talking to you, that's a good thing.
Yeah. One thing, I love that. One thing, somebody who's listening to this who wants to be, play pro, but also kind of play pro and get ready for the business world. What's your advice you're giving that young kid today?
No, I think, like, for me, it was going all in for hockey or whatever sport or whatever you're doing, go all in. There's time to slowly think about life after that. And for me, I think you got to be all in.
Yeah.
That just working hard, and you gotta have a chip on your shoulder, and you got to be able to outcompete the guy next to you, and you got to want it more. And I think that you build that mentality, and becomes who you are. And then whatever you do after that, it's going to transition, and that's going to be who you are no matter what you do. You just got to get to that point to where you build those pieces of you that are your everyday inner beings of you.
Yeah, I love it. Fast forward 100 years, what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, I think people will always remember me of my gray hair, but so maybe not that. But no, you know what? I appreciate my hockey career, but I don't want it to be what defines me. What defines me is my family and my friends to speak highly of me, and in the business world and people I work with. I just want to have a reputation that my parents would be proud of, and to be someone that people want to be around.
I love it. Drew, your ideal client and how people can connect with you.
So my ideal client is, on the commercial side, decision makers. I mean, people that are taking their business serious and want to make sure that they're protected correctly. On the personal side, we do home, auto, boats, umbrellas. We do all the personal side. So everyone needs insurance. If you're looking for quality coverage, we got great customer service. We have our own in-house claims department that is making sure any claim that happens, we are there basically holding your hand, white glove service. So, and that's not just personal, that's commercial too. So I think that's a real big asset that separates us from other agencies out there.
I love it. I have a couple final thoughts. I loved everything you talked about today. The importance of mindsets, the importance of mentors, the importance of being coachable, the importance of basics and fundamentals, the importance of, which I think is so important that I don't think enough people do it, just watching and observing, right? Like you talked about, was a kind of an undercurrent of everything that you talked about, just sitting back and watching what makes someone even, not only elite, but even exceptionally elite. Really kind of tapping into the power of your lineage and learning from not only other players and coaches, but your family. Wanting something more than the next guy. You gotta, have a positive and maybe a little edge chip on your shoulder to really want it more.
Sure.
And I love your dad's advice, which I'm going to repeat, which is, move your feet. because you got to keep on moving, whether it's in, sports, being a pro athlete, or in business. You got to keep moving, doing, learning, and all of that. And I think it requires so much discipline, so much consistency, so much resilience, which you've shown throughout your entire career, your athletic career and now your business career. So I appreciate everything you shared today. Any final thoughts, Drew?
No, I just think you got to enjoy what you're doing and you got to work hard at it. I think we talked about it. People want to be successful. And I think those are two really big factors: enjoying what you're doing, showing up to the office every day, and just working hard. And I think that for me, I don't have to outwork the people in my office because we're all working as a team, but you got to work your butt off for your clients. And that's something I enjoy doing.
Yeah. Drew, tell everybody how to connect with you one more time.
So you can call me at my office, 248-350-5874. Drew M at getkig.com is my email. And soon to be having a landing page that will connect you. So it'll be on my social media stuff and very easy access.
I love it. Drew, appreciate your words of wisdom. Think community, if you need insurance, anything, reach out to Drew. I've been using your firm for, since I was 23, I'm 49 now. Impeccable service, unbelievable. And appreciate all the proactive suggestions and making sure that I'm covered for myself, my business, my family. Appreciate your firm. Appreciate you. Great job on everything you're doing. Keep up the great work. And think community, reach out to Drew. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you.